Cody, first of all, just give us your overall impression of how first practice went.
Well, it was day one. Whether it's figuring out where we're getting water or where the balls are at or where we're checking out our gear. It was a learning experience for me, and in a lot of ways it was a ton of fun to finally get out and do some football and to see the guys with a helmet on. And there were a lot of learning moments for everybody involved, but man, there were a lot of laughs too. So I think that's a good day one in my book.
It's day one. It's super early. Anyone stand out to you?
I probably don't want to say too much because it was day one. I think it's availability and dependability are so important in any program, and I think you probably got to stack 2 good days before you start patting people on the back. But I'd say as a program, all those guys deserve a ton of credit for coming out and new schemes, new drills, new coaches, new field layout, different uniforms that guys are wearing. We're trying to mix up as much as we can so we can start fresh. And man, the guys attacked it with a great mentality today. I thought they had a good attitude, they had great energy, and we got what we wanted out of them.
And then, a lot of our fans, they see the players having to go through day one practice. How have your coaches responded to new scheme?
It's totally different, and even the type of coaches that we've been pulling too. You look at some guys have been at Power 5 programs where they have 4 quality control guys and a bunch of volunteers setting up their drills, and now it's like, hey man, you got to set up your own individual, and then figuring out where the camera's at. I mean, even working with Paya, a new camera crew of what are our resources from a video standpoint? Are we on the field? Are we in a tower? I don't even know how to set up individual because what we're capturing to teach these kids might be different based on the technology we have available. So we're really soaking all of that stuff up. But the guys have been awesome. When we assembled a staff, we had really good people that I knew. They're guys that could coach at an elite level, but would also be humble enough to work at a high school because this is Division I football and we're going to compete, but we know we're all going to attack new challenges every day and we need the right mentality to attack them, but the competency to do a good job once we do.
What are you trying to get out most out of this first week of practice, do you think?
The first week of practice, honestly, is figuring out what goes where, who does what, and what we need to fix going into the meat of spring ball. So in NCAA football, you have the 2-day acclimatization period where we're out in helmets and we don't wear pads. So again, real football doesn't happen until the pads come on because blocking, tackling are going to be such important parts of any season. I think you can do a lot of the sexy stuff of throwing and catching and running around, and people like to take pictures of that. But for us, these first 2 days before we go on spring break, it's kind of a trial to figure out, all right, over spring break, we need footballs here, we need cameras here, let's do this, let's incorporate this drill, hey, let's flip this around, this space will be better for that, because it's new for a lot of us, and we want to make sure when we get to the meat of practices with practice going, that when we get back from spring break, we're rolling like a well-oiled machine. So we're learning as much as we can right now, trialing, taking notes, and then we'll go back to the drawing board and be ready to roll.
Talked to Jake about it too, but just a lot of guys doing different things out there today. It's like big guys carrying football and stuff like that. If you can just speak on the logic.
Yeah, well, I think at any football program, you got to start with the fundamentals. So we're trying to make sure that our linemen, while I hope that a lot of our offensive linemen never have to catch a pass, so at some point they will, and we want to make sure they're ready. And defensive linemen, you don't get a lot of opportunities for turnovers, but we got to train them to make the plays when those opportunities present themselves. And fundamentals will be something we start every fall camp, every spring camp with, and everybody's going to do them. You never want your quarterback to tackle, but he's got to know how to safely do it and effectively do it if the situation arises. So kickers, punters, offensive linemen, they're going to do everything along with everybody else. And then we'll continue to preach those fundamentals, even though we might phase out some position groups and hyper-focus a few of the drills that we're doing. It's important for everybody to know the techniques, the teaching progression, and be able to execute them when they're asked to.
Mike's pushing over to offensive line, apparently. What can you just tell us how that came together and why you gave him that option?
With Mike?
Mike Davis, yeah.
Yeah, so you look at Mike, and on film, the guy was unquestionably the best blocker on the football team last year. I mean, it's not even close. He's unbelievably physical, and he has a frame to carry some weight. And he really has the mentality of a center, the athleticism of a tackle. And he played tight end last year, but how many passes did he catch? Do you know?
Not many.
Same amount you did. So, now again, I love Mike Davis. Mike Davis is a pillar of this football program, and we got to get him on the football field. But I know if we can train him to develop and block guys, he has an opportunity to be a foundational piece in the culture of that offensive line, which is so important in any football program. Now, I've told Mike, hey, Mike can't play offensive line. He'll start for us at tight end, and that's great. Now, what you're going to do with your tight end with Mike Davis will be different than what I've done in the past, but heck, good coaches got to adapt. But I played with Nate Solder, who moved from tight end after 2 years at Colorado to playing left tackle, and he was the highest paid tackle in the football league for multiple years and won more than a few Super Bowls with Tom Brady. I've seen it happen, and I know Coach Webb has transitioned guys from tight end to tackle before. So really, as we talk about spring, it's a kind of a trial for Mike. But no matter what Mike Davis plays, he's going to play for us, and he's going to be a leader on this football team. We're just kind of dabbling to see where he can fit and where we can stretch him right now.
I know you don't want to single anybody out on day one, but is it safe to say that Hunter and Keegan are in the mix at the quarterback spot right now?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, they're all in the mix.
Okay.
John's in the mix. Yeah, he's
Are
in the
you
mix.
really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my reps.
Yeah, he is. He's getting mental reps. Okay.
You sleep at
Yeah,
first.
yeah. I mean, Hunter and Keegan are totally in it. I think
Okay.
even some of those young guys. Mike's an athlete and Jake's a good leader. So, again, on day one, it's so hard to say, oh, your feet weren't great. Well, this is the first time I've asked them to do my footwork with my terminology. Their minds are moving 1,000 miles an hour. Those guys are in it. Those guys are in the meat of the hunt. You're totally right with that. But we got to push everybody in that room. We're going to continue to ask a lot of those guys and coach them, and we'll see who comes out over the duration of camp.
You mentioned Webb. It brought up a conversation me and him had earlier. We look at the practice today. There was seriousness, there was smiles, there was laughter. What do you want to see the culture of this team turn into?
Well, I always tell guys, like, you got to play hard. You got to play smart, but you also got to have fun. Like, you can talk about all these things, but at the end of the day, when you talk about playing football, I want it to be PLAY. I don't want it to be TEST. And so many guys are out there like they're going to about take a calculus test going to practice. And while, hey, there should be a healthy amount of anxiety or nerves before any big task that you do, right now we're trying to get these guys to fall in love with each other and to fall in love with the game. And for us, creating some of those unique tasks, challenges, games, micro drills, it just allows us to see guys react in situations we haven't seen them do yet. It's one thing in winter conditioning to see a kid do a star drill or a cone drill that he's seen on YouTube and he's been doing for 5 years. It's another thing to create an organic, spontaneous, athletic situation that he has to react in. Because really that's what football is. That's why there are all sorts of missed draft picks going into the NFL, because some guys just can't perform at that level. So on a day when we can't hit and we can't do team, we try and create situations where Joey or Greg or you has to do something on, at the drop of a hat and just react and see how those guys can play. And it's funny to see some of those kids are just ballers in those situations. So heck, we got to find a role for that guy. He may not test great, he may not measure well, but boy, he can do some stuff with the ball in his hands.
Your kids going to be at practice from now on? Or what
My kids, yeah, they're always around. I hope everybody's kids are at practice. I hope if there are kids if you want to come to practice, you want to get in the drills, we'll take everybody.
Don't tell my kids that.
No, I'm serious. I mean, I grew up on the football field, and at the end of the day, if you want to be good at anything in life, you got to work really hard. And it's hard to be good at something if you don't put in the time. And for me, being a first-time head coach, I got to spend a lot of more time talking to people, and between figuring out offensive stuff and administration stuff, it takes a lot more time for me. But I want my kids to be around. I want your kids to be around. I want the staff's kids to be around. I mean, I think if you spend so much time away from your family and work, then work kind of becomes the mistress. But things like I love coaching football, and I really want to pour into the guys on my team. I want the guys to be around my family. I want people to see my family at practice. And I want my kids to think football is something that adds to their life, not takes away from it.